When I first started, how it kind of all first started for me was, 20 odd years ago when I used to go down Armstrong Bridge in Jesmond there. And I used to wander and see the artwork, and some of it was great, others was ridiculous, it was terrible. So I ended up getting books out of the library and kind of learned the pi r squared of art, you know, perspective and colour match, all this carry on. And then I started doing watercolours. I was fascinated by this artist called Ashley Jackson, who painted the moors down in Yorkshire. And I got his paintings and I copied them, and I ended up going out in Alston and all the moors and the Northumberlands and stuff, trying to emulate his style. And that's how I got into watercolours. And then I started painting scenes of Newcastle, while I understood how paint works, but it was still watercolours. I remember doing a painting from up here, from Horatio Street, looking at the Tyne Bridge here, and it's when all this area was covered in, it was all these old tin shacks, and it was a terrible painting. It was crap of the highest order, and I put it in a shop in Newcastle next to the monument there called Morrison, Swan and Morgan's. Anyway, I found out that the shop was closing down, so I went in to get my painting back, and they said that it sold. And I was standing there with a cheque for £90. I was getting 50 quid a week on the dole, and this was like 2 weeks dole money. I thought, 90 quid for a piece of rubbish, and it sold. I thought, cha-ching, you know, those like Tom and Jerry dollar signs came up in my eyes, you know. And that's kind of how it started from there. And then, you know, it was a progression from watercolours to oil painting. What was happening in my life back then, I was cleaning windows. I spent years cleaning windows. I was a window cleaner for about 15 years. And when it was raining, I was painting. And when it was sunny, I was cleaning windows. So I kind of combined the two jobs in a one. It worked out well because it was all dependent on the weather. And because, you know, in the UK it was raining more than sunny, so I spent most of my time painting rather than cleaning windows. And that's kind of how the kind of job situation was back in I think it was 1988. And I kind of needed to make the break, but you kind of never do. You never really make the break unless you're pushed, I think, or you're brave. And I wasn't brave. So what happened to me when my father died was that I had a huge breakdown. It was a really odd time in my life. Even though I didn't kind of particularly like it, it affected me. His death affected me more than anything else. So at the time, everything was starting to unravel. I went through everything bad that can happen to you: divorce, breakdown, ended up living in my car wanting to die. That's where I was in my life. And I think to get mastery over the situation, creative people will produce the best work. Van Gogh's the classic example. When he was wanting to commit suicide and die, he was producing these great works of art. And I think that's what creative people do. But when I kind of hit the ground with a bump, it was the first thing I could turn to was painting, which was good in a sense because it gave me kind of mastery over the grief that I was going through, but it kind of gave me an income at the same time. And then the career started to launch from that. I kind of aim for probably about 40 to 50 paintings a year. So with this exhibition I've got at the Hancock, with 70 paintings done in about, I don't know, 8 or 9 months, it's been a heck of a task to take on, and the big paintings as well, because I'm used to painting like maybe 3 foot by 4 foot things. So these big 6 foot paintings it's been a heck of a task to take on. When I first started, I used to have the gadget in a street, and I painted quite a few of that kind of ilk, but I was always looking for a way to make the figure stand out more, and I could never get it. And it was by accident. It was a pure accident that I had one day, and I had a big pile of white paint left on my palette. So I thought to myself, I'm not going to let that go to waste. Typical Scot, I know, but what I did was I wanted to put some texture on the canvas. So I just got the white paint and just went around the figure. And I looked at it and I thought, hang on, that looks a bit interesting. And it was almost the more I took out the paintings, the more people saw in them. So the backgrounds became even more vague and vague as time went on. It's kind of a set thing to do. It's a bit of a routine because it's the same kind of character that I'm painting. So it's almost like I don't need to think about what colours to use. I use quite a limited palette. My granny always used to go on about putting a wee bit of salt in her porridge. So I says, you know, when you're using colour, use it like salt in your porridge. Just a tiny wee bit will bring all the flavour out. So when I started painting, it was a bit like that. So any little bit of colour, it just like a red balloon just stood out, you know. So that's the kind of mixing colours. I mean, you can go on for ages talking about the pi r squared of doing a painting, you know, all the ins and outs and thinking about it. And it's interesting. But what I do is it's more from in here that I paint. It's a set colour kind of palette that I use, but it's what I'm trying to convey is the important thing. It's the message behind what the image means. That's more important to me than thinking too much about what colour to mix with this, that, and the other. You know, it's probably a lazy way to paint, you know, but it suits me.